I'd like to talk about neighborhood preservation first because that's a key issue. And having been in law enforcement, I know what happens when we let areas decline. Neighborhood preservation is very important on a number of levels. First, you don't want areas to start looking bad, to turn into slums, and ultimately to lose their businesses. There's a theory that circulated for many, many years called the broken window theory. And what that talked about was the fact that once we start allowing a business, a home, to have a broken window, what happens then ultimately is the next neighbor or the next business doesn't seem to care as much. Ultimately what happens is there's just a trend downwards. It can be stopped. The problem is if you allow it to start occurring, it's already gaining a foothold. It's very difficult to reverse when it's already slipped down quite a bit. So you need to get on those things right away. Part of that, of course, is neighborhood preservation and keeping areas that are precious to us. We've talked about Placerita Canyon. There's no question that there's a rural atmosphere there that we don't have in many of the other parts of the city. That needs to be preserved. And that means that any development that goes in there needs to be consistent with, or at least in keeping generally, with the type of property you have. What they have to do is, if necessary, if it's an area between, to at least blend and do it in such a way that you're mindful of the areas around you. The 5 and the 14, there are a lot of other issues. There's Maglev, there's an inland port, there are a whole bunch of things that need to be considered as well and need to be supported. And the city needs to lobby for those things. We're doing a good job now. We need to do a better job. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little about annexation. I'm a strong believer in annexation. I've said it many times. But I think what we also need to do is point out to the residents of the city the advantages to them of annexation as well. And I think that those are numerous. First, because we have a greater control of what happens in our entire valley, and it affects everyone. So it's something that's important not only to people outside, but within the city. Thank you.